The conversation surrounding Shedeur Sanders has become one of the most confusing storylines in the NFL right now. For the Cleveland Browns, the real challenge isn't simply evaluating their young quarterback. It's separating actual on-field facts from the endless narratives that continue to follow him from the draft process to the present day. Because the truth is that Sanders' reputation has been shaped almost as much by perception as by performance. If we rewind to early 2025, Sanders' draft story looked completely different. At that time, many analysts projected him as a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. Some mock drafts even suggested he could challenge for the number one overall selection. By the weeks leading into draft night, the most common projection had him as the second quarterback off the board. Then everything changed. Instead of hearing his name called on the first night of the draft, Sanders kept sliding down the board. Round after round passed without a team selecting him. Eventually, the Browns ended the suspense by taking him with the 144th overall pick in the 5th round, one of the most shocking draft falls in recent NFL memory. To the public, the drop felt almost impossible to explain, but inside league circles, it apparently wasn't a surprise at all. Reports quickly surfaced that Sanders had created concerns during pre-draft interviews with several teams. Some executives believed he came across as overly confident, while others questioned how he would respond to adversity at the professional level. None of those concerns had anything to do with his arm strength, mobility, or ability to read defenses, but they influenced how teams evaluated him as a long-term franchise leader. Then came the scouting combine. Unlike some of the other quarterback prospects, Sanders chose not to participate in throwing drills during the combine. While skipping those drills is not unusual for top prospects, in Sanders' case, it only intensified existing questions. For teams already unsure about him, the decision reinforced doubts rather than eliminating them. And according to Cleveland radio host Anthony Lima, the same pattern repeated itself this year. During another week of league-wide discussions at the Combine, general managers reportedly still weren't ready to view Sanders as the Browns' clear quarterback of the future. The perception around the league hasn't changed much from what it was during the draft process. But this is where the Browns must be careful, because the narrative surrounding Sanders may not fully reflect the reality of his situation. First, it's important to remember what Sanders actually was entering the league: a 5th-round pick. That distinction matters more than most people realize. 5th-round quarterbacks are rarely expected to become immediate starters. In many cases, they spend their first few seasons simply fighting to stay on the roster. Yet Sanders has already played 8 games in his rookie season. That alone represents an opportunity many late-round quarterbacks never receive. And while his performances were inconsistent, inconsistency is the norm for rookie quarterbacks across the league. Even players who eventually become superstars often struggle during their first exposure to NFL defenses. The speed of the game is different. The complexity of defensive schemes is greater. The margin for error is much smaller. Mistakes are part of the learning process. Still, when Sanders took the field for Cleveland, something noticeable happened. The Browns' offense, which has struggled for years to establish any consistent identity, suddenly showed flashes of energy and confidence. Teammates responded to his swagger. The pace of the offense felt more aggressive. Even when plays broke down, Sanders' willingness to extend them created moments that had been missing from Cleveland's offense. That doesn't mean he played perfectly. There were interceptions, missed reads, and moments where the game clearly moved too fast for him. But those are exactly the kinds of struggles most young quarterbacks experience during their first season. The problem is that Sanders is being evaluated as if he were a failed first-round pick instead of a developmental 5th-round project. That difference changes the entire conversation. A first-round quarterback who struggles as a rookie might be viewed as a disappointment. A 5th-round quarterback showing flashes of potential is typically seen as a success story in progress. Unfortunately for Sanders, the expectations created by pre-draft hype never completely disappeared. Because fans and media once believed he would be a top prospect, many people continue to judge him through that lens. Every mistake becomes proof that the draft slide was justified. Every good performance is treated as a temporary surprise rather than meaningful development. It's a moving set of goalposts. For the Browns, ignoring that external noise will be critical. New head coach Todd Monken has built a reputation throughout his career as an offensive mind, capable of adapting to his players' strengths. At multiple stops, both in college and the NFL, Monken has demonstrated the ability to design systems that maximize the talents of his quarterbacks. That approach could be extremely valuable for Sanders. Instead of forcing him into a rigid offensive structure, Monken has the flexibility to build an attack that emphasizes Sanders' strengths: mobility, improvisation, and the ability to create outside the structure of the play. At the same time, the Browns would be wise to explore the broader quarterback market. Doing so doesn't mean they've given up on Sanders. It simply reflects the reality of modern NFL roster building. Teams constantly search for competition and depth at the most important position in sports. If Cleveland adds another veteran quarterback this offseason, it doesn't automatically close the door on Sanders' development. In fact, competition could accelerate his growth by forcing him to refine his mechanics, decision-making, and leadership. Quarterbacks rarely develop in a straight line. Some take massive leaps between their first and second seasons. Others require several years before everything finally clicks. The key for Cleveland is recognizing that Sanders is still at the very beginning of that process. What matters most now is the full offseason ahead of him. For the first time since entering the league, Sanders will have months to study the playbook, refine his fundamentals, and build chemistry with his teammates. That preparation period often makes an enormous difference for young quarterbacks who were thrown into action before they were fully ready. If Sanders uses that time wisely, the version of him that appears in training camp could look significantly different from the rookie who started games last season. And if that happens, the narrative around him could change just as quickly as it formed. For the Browns, the mission is simple: focus on the facts. The fact is that Sanders was a fifth-round pick with intriguing physical tools. The fact is that he showed flashes of potential during his rookie season. And the fact is that he still has time to grow into a legitimate starting quarterback. Everything else, the combine chatter, the anonymous executive opinions, the constant comparisons, is just noise. Cleveland's future at quarterback shouldn't be decided by narratives created outside the building. It should be determined by what Sanders proves on the field in the months ahead.